Last time on Building Resilience, we were pulling sheets off the pile of Zip System R12 insulated sheathing, notching them around pipes, and nailing them to the walls. That's simple enough in new construction, but when bridging new and old, sometimes the old framing is a little less than plumb.
On this wall, we've got the existing house meets new construction. The existing house kind of does a little bit of a twist and a lean, which is pretty typical for balloon frame houses. They tend to have a little bit of pull towards the inside. So where we're perfect at the bottom, we're pretty imperfect at the top. And that's okay. We've got a bit of furring strip in there. We're planing it out. By the time we get about 6 feet into the existing house, we're able to go flush against the sheeting again.
The main challenge wasn't that, though. It was creating backing for the windows, which are fastened through the jambs rather than through nailing fins. This meant coming up with a suitable window buck design.
I normally don't like bucks, and so when we came up with this system for bucks that were concealed, it was a question like how well would it work, but we really kind of got it dialed in now. We're almost friction fitting these things in place. We've got 2 beads of foam that we're putting in there to make sure that we've got a good air seal around those bucks. It's, fenestrations are the weak part of the system, and I'd like to make sure we don't have air flow in and around the windows. That would be bad.
And that brings us back to where we began this journey. In the middle of the story, in the middle of the country, hightailing it home in a quarantine pod. The job site became a little more desolate for a little while as deliveries slowed, subs postponed, and everyone sort of went into slow motion mode. Construction was deemed essential, so at least the crew could work. Fortunately, it's a large house and that affords all kinds of separation. The main objective, as noted in the pilot episode, was installing the Skycove from Marvin. It's a glass cube that bolts to the side of the house, made for relaxing and stargazing. There were a couple of obstacles to the installation, though. First, no one had ever installed one before. Second, a crane is essential equipment because Skycove needs to align with a rough opening and it needs to be bolted in place, plumb, level, square, and even. The solution to the first obstacle was technological.
So the engineers were on the phone with us while we were installing it via Zoom. I think we were flying a drone in a Zoom call and trying to manhandle some big drills to get bolts into place. It was 5 hours that went by in about 30 minutes. It was a pretty intense moment.
The solution to the second one was mechanical.
So the site, of course, it has no alley. So everything is from the street and we're up on a hill and we're set back a ways from the street. And then there's that giant pine tree in the back. So some of the things that we might've done in a different site weren't available to us. We have a thing called a rocket crane that picked up the Skycove unit from the street while it was still boxed at 1,100 pounds and brought it up between the two houses in an area of level ground. Then the cat picked it up and moved it to the backyard where we unboxed it. And then we moved a bunch of earth up next to the house because we hadn't done our backfill yet. So we moved a few dozen yards of earth and then laid out a bunch of Advantech for the Bobcat to have a somewhat stable platform to drive on. So then he picked up the unit, brought it back there, and the skill of this driver was something because we're trying to lift this large object, up 14 feet in the air, square it on the opening, and in this process, make sure that we're, level and plumb. And it wasn't the sort of thing where you could, tap it a little to the left or shim it with a wood shim or anything like that. So it really required a lot of coordination between the driver and the crew on the inside of the window, communicating what we wanted him to do and making little micro adjustments until we could get it close enough that we could use these kind of come along bolts that we were able to pull the unit fully in. So it starts a little bit out at an angle and then we kind of crank it into place like this.
The problem with using a skid steer loader, though, is hydraulics. A load can hang off a cable all day long without ever moving. Hydraulics are no cable. Sure, they're great, but they require constant attention to maintain the correct pressure. Because of physics. So this sort of meant that they had to work quickly, doing something that no one had ever done without any adult supervision. Okay, there were engineers on a Zoom call, but really, Michael was the closest thing to adult supervision on the job, and that's a scary proposition.
And the attachment point is not through the face of the material. It's through the side of the material. So these steel posts slide into the opening of the framing, and from there we drill out through our wall studs, and then we attach a series of lag screws through that. So we're pushing 3/4 inch lag bolts through, 4 studs to get it in place.
Of course, there's also that matter of being the first one to sit in it.
When we decided that we thought we had it secured, and we told the Bobcat that he could start to back out, there was this very pregnant pause as we, wondered if it would shift on us suddenly or come, rip itself off the house. But multiple people have now stood in it and worked in it, and it's incredibly stable.
But that's not all that Marvin sent down from War Road. They also sent some fiberglass frame triple glazed casement windows. If Skycove hadn't muscled its way into the show, these windows would have been the star because they're beautiful, durable, and energy efficient as heck. Another show-stopping product sent down on the truck is the 4-panel sliding stackable doors that open pretty much the whole wall.
And you can see over here, this is the new modern multi-slide stacking door from Marvin. And it provides an incredible view of the exterior. And what's really cool about this thing is that the whole thing opens up.
And that opens up the opportunity to take a closer look at how those doors and the Marvin modern casement windows are installed in the next episode. Stay tuned and stay resilient.